Let's say I am drawing this one. Or I already drew it anyway. So let's say I'm doing this one. When I was reading all these YouTube tutorials, when I was freaking out about how to draw Cullen's stupid fur on Photoshop, I started drawing like this. And I realized the most important thing that I learned on YouTube tutorials was that fur kind of bends when it's worn. So if she is wearing this long fur coat, it's not gonna flow off the top. The fur isn't gonna flow off the top like that. Not so much. This kind of means she's wearing this very hairy kind of coat. But for her, because it's fur, and fur comes in different lengths, it's gonna fold and bunch and stick up according to the length of the fur. So if I'm going to try and draw Cullen later, I'm gonna want to pick out, let me get back to him. Where's that dude? Okay, so when I'm drawing him, I'm gonna need to think and ask myself, where exactly would my fur start to bend and split and move off into different directions? I anticipate that the fur would probably bend. Let me just get rid of these flowers because I can add them in later. No worries about those. Yeah, I know that it's so freaking insipid and saccharine. Anyway, the fur is probably going to be bending out this way because he's wearing the coat, and this is where I foresee the fur would start to mound off, like almost like a hill. It would continue off this way, squeeze a little bit down to his neck, and the back would flow out. It would also start to bend off in different directions here because it is flowing over the pauldron. Similarly, over here, I am going to see a bit more of a curve up here. It's going to flow down in that way, that direction. So later on, when I'm going to feather, I can do my long strokes here, down this way. It's no problem. But when I'm coming up here, I'm going to need to add those smaller strokes in so that I can give the illusion that this fur is flowing outwards. So that's what I'm going to do afterwards. Don't worry, I'll add this all back in. Anyway, so that's about fur flow. Wherever you see the contrast of the fur going to move off to a different direction, then you can arrange the length of your feathering. You can kind of plan exactly where your long strokes are going to be, probably along the back here, and your shorter, sharper strokes using the tip of your brush are probably going to wind up here where the fur bends. This is not the same for every kind of fur. Long fur worn like this is a bit easier to draw because you can work with your longer feathering strokes and it's not that hard to control. If it's drawn on an animal though, it's going to be completely different. So I'll not talk about that because I've never drawn a furry thing in my life. A furry thing that wasn't dead and being worn by an imaginary guy. So to move on, we've talked about fur flow now. I'm going to start off with the process and some tips. And hopefully I don't wind up with a piece of shit messed up drawing. Okay, so for this one, I have picked out actually 1, 2, and 3. Oh no, I forgot what colors I picked. Was it this one? Oh, okay, I remember. So his fur is actually kind of darkish, reddish brown. So I've picked out for the base of my fur, I'm going to be using these 3 colors. I'll arrange them accordingly. So my E18 for my Copic chow is going to be a copper, dark suntan, okay, and cashew. This is going to be my darkest tone, my mid-tone, and my highlights. You can do this with anything. If you want to do grays or sepias, doesn't matter. Just make sure that you have 3 tones. Okay, I'm no Picasso, no Michelangelo, so I like 3 colors. You want to start off with the lightest tone. You can even do something a little bit different if you are the nervous sort of artist, which I am. Another thing that you can try to do is to utilize a very, very light color to kind of draft out where exactly you want your shades to be. I think I may do that. I have no confidence. Another thing that I've done with him is I have not actually lined his fur because I want to kind of get that a similar effect to this. Fur is rarely lined. If let's say I were to color in something like this, you are going to see the fur, but you're not going to exactly mimic or replicate the flow of the fur as if it were unlined. So it really kind of looks like anime style, or I don't know what this is, non-anime style. So yeah, you may want to think about that. So for him, I'm going to lighten out the pencil shades a little bit more. Can it be seen? Yes, it can. I don't really need my strokes right now. I just kind of need to know where I want the fur to flow up for balance in the picture, where I want it to flow downwards. Otherwise, I don't need this many harsh strokes. I need a general direction of where I want his things to be. His fur to be. His fur? Anyway, I don't know what the hell I'm saying anymore. So as I said, you can start off with a lighter color, and the more colors you use, the more depth your fur is going to have. The previous picture that I showed you, this particular one, I kind of used like 5 different colors, 5 different shades of gray, and this, a shade of brown, because I wanted to create wolf fur. So you can see the cool grays here, you can see the warm grays in between, and as a very base, I used the lightest tone of toner gray, very neutral gray all through. So the more colors you use, the more depth your fur is going to have. I'm just going to do something simple for him though, because his fur is very dark, so it's no point in trying to blend that many colors in. But if you were to use a lighter color, it's good, because Copics, the lighter colors help to blend out whatever colors you've already placed on the paper. Say I have this, and just for funsies, I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to go backwards. Just a very quick flow. Okay, now you can kind of see exactly where the strokes start and the strokes end. If you don't want this and you want to soften the strokes, you can use a lighter color. And what that's going to do is it's going to soften out the strokes. I suppose the lighter colors have a lot more ethanol in it, so it tends to push the strokes back a bit more. And when the paper's wet, you can go back with your real lighter color. Actually, that's kind of what the blender is for. This 0, the pure ethanol. But I like to use one with pigment in it so I can get more color depth. So doing this, you can see the strokes actually really soften out into a lighter gradient. So starting off with a lighter color, lighter than even the lightest color of your selection would be good. So I'm just gonna, using the tip of my marker, doing that very pointed movement, I'm just gonna roughly peg out, draft in where I want my coat strokes, the first strokes, to end. Okay, here I want to curl up. So this one, I need to think about how I'm going to do that. I haven't thought about it really. Here, as I said, because it bends outwards, I'm going to want a lot of light strokes. And here it flows around the back of his head. So I'm going to shift the strokes that I do to mimic the fur. It's okay if you just go over his hair, it's fine. You can color it in because it's so light. Down here, I want an upward curl. So I'll just put that in. Okay, so here's going to be longer fur. So I can stretch my strokes. Okay, this one's the tough one. It's going to bend outwards here. It's going to try and follow the shape of his pauldron. And this is where the pauldron curve starts. So that's why the fur is starting to bunch out in that direction. Here, okay, these I can play with a lot longer. And I want this to come up. Okay, now as I was mentioning here, you fold outwards. So You don't have to think about this too much. Just be very free flowing, very random. Here I said it would flow. Okay, it will bunch down here a lot more because it's already around the curve of his chest. Yep. Down here. Okay. So this part looks nice, this part looks like shit. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's art. Now, the next thing you want to do is go from lightest to darkest, as opposed to some parts you will need to go darker to lighter, like if you're coloring skin. You want to start off with your darker shades so that the lighter you go, as I said, Copics blend, the lighter colors will blend it more. So if you want smooth gradients on the skin, you go from darker to lighter and then your colors will blend. But for fur, you don't want to go that way. You need to go backwards. Because the darker you go, the more depth you're going to create. So if you immediately start with dark, you're going to really wind up with not very sure where your depth's going to be because the fur is so random and it depends on your strokes. So let's go with my lighter color, which is my E15. This is going to be my base color. Now my E08 is going to be the little bits of whiter fur, the little strokes of red fur that he has, although I don't know what they were doing. But yeah, I need spaces in which I can draw the bits of red fur. But for now, so I'm just going to leave those places lighter so I can color in with this later on. For now, I'm just going to do the base of his coat. Wrong end. Do not start with chisel tips. Okay. This one, again, small strokes and just be free and random. Now, as you're shading and coloring in, it's okay for you to kind of block off these big bits because depending on the kind of fur that you're drawing, okay, so the places where there's going to be a lot of short fur, it's going to draw in basically clumps of fur that fold out or in or under, doesn't matter, be random. Yeah, I say all this now, it might just turn out looking like shit, you never know. Anyway, stupid art. Okay, now fur doesn't always flow in the same direction, so you can pop it up, doesn't really matter. And here, as I said, I want it out, over, Alright, so now it still looks very drawn, which is okay. So what you're going to do now is you're going to just, using all these blocks that you've just made, shade them a little at a time. Don't worry about the first strokes right now, just shade it in. You can add in all those details when you apply your darker colors. So this is kind of a base color that you're doing right now, just to fix in your head where you want your parts to move. Like I want this bit to flow upwards, so later I'm going to need to shade around it over here. Hopefully, as I said, it might just turn out looking like shit. Be sure you don't fill in too much of this gap along the center. If you do, it's okay. You can go over it with the Copic blender and kind of just lighten a few dots here and there. The Copic blender, what it basically does is it's pure ethanol. So it's going to seep through your paper and it's going to push the pigment particles to the back of the paper and to the edges of the ethanol smudge. So if you draw a huge circle with just like smudge your ethanol on the paper, on the edge of that smudge is going, your pigment's going to gather there. So if you want to lighten out, you can actually do that. Okay. All right. Now you can see this part kind of looks a little bit nicer than this part over here, because this is actually where I did not apply my lightest tone, which is okay. I'm going to go back later on when everything is put in place. I'm going to blend it and soften it. Now I'm going to go to my mid-tone. This is where you start putting in broader strokes. And I'm always using the very tip of my brush because of the space constraint. I can't use the side of my brush. Sorry, I got distracted. Stupid sexy Cullen with his stupid sexy fur. Can't he wear a t-shirt or something? Okay, I want to save some parts to be lighter, like here, here's, actually wherever's, because I want to do that stupid red tone that he has. Okay, so as I'm shading, I'm basically going over the fur clumps, because God knows what animal he killed to get this fur. It's got very large clumpy fur. So you kind of see me going backwards sometimes, shading upwards or feathering upwards. And sometimes you'll see me feathering downwards because this is where the end of the clump is. So like here, I'd feather out. And then I'd feather up. I want the highlight to be, oh shucks, here-ish in the clump. That's why I feather in two directions. I think I'll make that bit red as well. Oh, whatever. So you'll notice here, I actually left that line of white. You can see white, but a lighter shade of color in between. Because here I would actually, because of the fold, it's such a big fold, it's such a sharp fold, I imagine I would be able to see towards the skin part of the fur. Here though, I have closed in the line deliberately. I didn't make a mistake, I did on purpose. Because, perspective-wise, it folds around the back of his neck, so I wouldn't be able to see it anymore. I think I'll just work on this height. So, you know, I don't take... So, half an hour video. Now I'm going to go to my darkest shade. And I'm going to add in... Oops, I forgot one part of it. I forgot. Here's... About to feather this end. Okay. Now I'll add in bits of red. And now you can kind of see where there's still specks of white, which is okay, because now you go over with your lightest color. You don't have to color everything, don't blend everything, because there will be bits of fur which will remain sharp and pointed at the end. You just want to run over and take out or cover any obvious bits of white. So yeah, that's his fur. Now you'll kind of see here, I have gone over the line. That's okay. The trick is, you get your blender, because I said it would push the ink away from the blender. So let's go here. It's already been blended. Let's just put a dot. Bigger dot. So you can see from the center where the ethanol is pushing the particles aside, and you'll get this kind of a ring around it. And at the back of the paper, you'll see more of the particles being pushed around. Yeah, I know, I'm using cheap-ass papers, okay. So for this, if let's say I made a boo-boo and I need to get the ink back out of the line, I can. Just make a little dab close to the pot, and you can see the ink will be pushed back. It's not perfect. I mean, I'll know it's there and you'll know it's there. It's not perfect, but at least it's out of the way for when I need to shade this part of his armor. So yeah, that's how you draw fur. Check and